Hi, I'm Joanne Banko from Let's Go Sew. Have you ever looked around and wished you had some good ideas for dressing up your home decor? Today I've got a really fun technique for you. I'm going to show you how to do free motion thread painting on printed home decor fabric. So let me show you the sample that I've got here. What I did is I took a printed fabric. This one had a nice motif of birds on it, and I separated them out, drew just a slight margin around it, and then attached it to a piece of stabilizer. Now you want to secure this because when you're going to see in a minute when we go over to the machine, you're going to need to keep this in place. So pinning works fine. If you want to use sticky spray, temporary sticky spray, that works as well. So either way, you definitely though want to put it on a tearaway type stabilizer because you want to make sure you can get this off really easily. So in this technique, what we're going to do is we're going to just thread the machine, use a standard straight stitch, but we're going to lower the feed dogs, and we're literally going to just sketch over this. So I want you to know this is a perfect beginner technique. It takes no free motion skill. It takes no advanced artist skills whatsoever. We're simply going to take what the artist already did when they created the fabrics, and we're going to literally color over it. So very much like you would color in a coloring book. And in fact, just like if you learned when, as a child, it's okay to color outside the lines, it's okay to color outside the lines on this too. So look at what I did here on the birds. On the birds, I did just a little bit of accent stitching, and I kept pretty much within the areas that were colored, and I took thread colors that were very similar in the color but had a little bit more brightness and a little bit more boldness. So as far as supplies, you want to gather your fabric, go shopping for a nice print. You want to gather the stabilizer, and then consider what threads you're going to use. Now we're also going to need to use a specialty presser foot. So I've brought two here today. One is a standard darning foot. They just call it a darning foot, designed for free motion stitching. And then the second one is an open toe quilting foot, and that's the one that I'm actually going to use. Now I want you to look at both samples. You can see here the raise technique. I'm going to show you how I did that. It's a trapunto effect. But it also is very beautiful if you do your free motion stitching and decorate your base fabric and then decorate a motif and then simply lay it on top. These actually came from two totally different prints of fabric, and I just married the two together and placed that on, and you'll see how I attach it when I do that. Okay, so again, step one, draw a margin. You are going to lose a little bit of your motif when you do that because you want to have about a half of an inch surrounding that, and let's go ahead and go over to the machine. Grab my foot. So this foot has its own shank, so I'm going to screw that on. So again, I've got some decorative thread in here. I've got white lightweight thread, so like embroidery thread in the bobbin. And I've got my machine set for a straight stitch. And what I need to do now is lower the feed dogs because this is all about free motion. So I'm going to be the mover and shaker here with forming that stitch. So touch this little key there, and that will automatically lower the presser foot. So stitch length, stitch width, none of that matters. It's all controlled by me. All right, so I'm going to grab this piece that I've already got stabilized, and I'm just simply going to show you how I fill this in and add some of that, that color. Now, just again, is very forgiving. Some people like to wear free motion gloves when they do this, but you're not trying to do anything really pretty. You're just trying to create some color, create some texture, create some accents. When I'm done there, I can tie that area off a little bit, clip the thread. I've got a knee lift on this machine, so it allows me to lift my presser foot with my knee and lower it with my knee, and that way that gives me an extra, you know, almost like a third hand. So again, I'm just going to do a little bit of decorative stitching on there, just add some texture. You could add detail lines in where there are no detail lines if you want to. You could also, you know, outline it. You could do more, you could do less. The beauty of this is that you do a little bit at a time and then take a look and see, you know, where do you want to add more color? Where do you want to add a little bit more depth? shading. Don't be afraid to use multiple different colors. Don't be afraid to use colors that are brighter, lighter, and even maybe a little different shade than what your print has. But let that kind of be your guide. So I would continue on with this. I would change my thread color. I would do more decorative in there. You know, kind of go at your own pace, and don't be afraid to do just a little bit at a time. I'm going to do just another little area here just so that you can see. Oh, I think my thread came unthreaded here. Let's get that threaded back up. Don't be afraid to, like I said, go back in and add to it, and you know, make it so that you're happy with it. But what I really want you to see is that this is so easy that even if you're a pure beginner and you've never done any type of free motion work, you can do this. It's really, really simple. Just back and forth, straight stitch, just sketching in a little bit of color there. Now, I'll tell you on this particular project, which I decided to turn into a pillow, you could also consider doing this on other projects. This would be really fun technique to do on the back of a jean jacket. Again, you can add the stuffing if you want. I'm going to show you how to do that in a minute here. Or you can leave it flat like I did on the other pillow panel. Your choice. So let's take a look at one that I've already got done, and that would be this one here. Okay, so you can see I sketched in the gray, a little bit of green, a little bit of beige, and now what I need to do is remove all of this tearaway stabilizer. And when I do this, I want to show you one important step that I probably should have mentioned at the beginning, and that is that I have added interfacing to this fabric. So that is also going to add a little bit of body, but it's also going to do one more thing. It's going to add a little bit more ravel resistance, because my next step is I would take, you know, once I've got that all decorated, you could see a couple different birds with the stabilizer all torn away. I'm going to now trim really, really close to that motif. So that interfacing is going to help keep that fabric from raveling, but if you have fabric that really does fray quite a bit, consider using a seam sealant to go all around that raw edge and keep that a little bit more secure. Okay, so now I'm going to grab my pillow panel piece, and I'm going to just show you real quick how I prepared this. I like to make pillows that have a little bit of an extra padding on the front. So very often I will take my home decor fabric and I will take fusible fleece, which is a very thin type of batting with a fusible on it, and I will put that against the wrong side and fuse that in place to my whole pillow panel front. So this is just a little sample piece. Okay, I'm going to now change my foot, and I'm going to go back to a regular presser foot. What I'm going to need to do next is attach that applique with a simple zigzag stitch. Now, at this point, you could consider using a decorative foot, the type that has like an open toe or a clear view. Just to make it quick and easy today, I'm just going to use the regular standard sewing foot, which can do straight and zigzag sewing. Okay, I want to cancel out my free motion because that will raise the presser, or the feed dogs rather, back up when I raise the presser foot, and when I take one stitch with the machine, those feed dogs will now come up. So if you've done that and your feed dogs stay down, they don't come back up until you take a stitch. And I want to take a minute just to tell you a little bit more about the foot while it's off here so that you can see it. This foot, again, it's designed to screw on. It's designed to be spring-loaded so that when it's on the machine, it will actually jump a little bit. It's got that nice open toe. If you are accustomed to doing machine embroidery, whatever you do, don't confuse this with your machine embroidery foot because they are not interchangeable. So they are two completely separate, different feet. All right, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to simply select a very narrow zigzag. So I'm going to select a zigzag stitch, and I'm going to go really narrow on the length, usually about a 2.0, and I'm going to space that out just a little bit to about 2.0 there. And I'm just going to go along the raw edge. You would want to use matching thread because that would blend right in to your whatever color your background fabric is. Just swirl that around. When you get to a point, you want to stop and pivot. If you've got a pointed edge, you want to pivot on the outside. Sometimes it's good to take one stitch at a time with needle up, needle down. and then pivot again with that on the outside. Okay, and I'm going to go around just a little bit of spacing there. Okay, I'm going to take this out, and I want to show you what I've done so far. Okay, I've done a large area of that little bird. Now it's time to stuff it. So I'm going to take my stuffing, and I like to use a special stuffing. It's called cluster fill. It's very different from regular poly type fill. It's done almost in like little beads. So you can take small amounts at a time, and we can feed that right in. We need a little opening. Okay, I can push some of that in with my fingers, but if you're trying to get into pointed areas, you may want to use a chopstick. Even the eraser end of a pencil works. But just to get that in, I want to stuff that all in those areas that are small. I want to get some of that detail puffed out. Okay, get as much as you can in there. And you're going to get to a point where it's just going to be, it's enough, because you got to get this back under the machine. So don't overstuff it. You're just trying to create a little bit of texture and a little dimension. There, I think I had a little bit too much in there, so I'm going to take just a little bit of that out, because you don't want your pillow to be too puffy. You want to keep that a little bit on the flatter side. Okay, and then I'm just going to meet up right where I left off. Go back around there. See if I can get around this whole little foot there. And you don't have to stuff every area, so don't think that it's got to be entirely like that. Just that little bit of extra dimension in some areas that you want to accent is going to do it just fine. So just keep pushing that in. Make sure all of that batting is tucked to the inside. You don't want any of that to show. Pick a thread color. You may want to do a sample with this. You know, that's part of the fun of buying that home decor fabric with all those different motifs. You might be like me and you just have trouble figuring out which pretty birds are really motifs you want to use. Flowers, you can add leaf accent stems. There's just all kinds of different types of home decor fabrics out there. If you choose to use something a little bit lighter, then consider, that's an option as well, but make sure that you use an interfacing that beefs that up a little bit. You want that to be pretty good weight. So I'm right at the end there now. I'm going to tie that stitch off. And just clip that little tail where I started. And move this extra stuffing out of the way. And there you could see my beautiful bird. Get rid of that little extra tail there. Perfect and ready to sew on my pillow. So let me hop back up to the pillow just for a minute and show you just a little bit how I finished it. I wanted to tie the color scheme together, so I just cut some strips of fabric, sewed them right along the edge, so just kind of, brought that little color back, created an envelope closure on the back, just two simple flat pieces overlapped, put it right sides together, turned it right side out, put a pillow form in there, and I'm perfectly ready to redecorate with my beautiful free motion trapunto 3-dimensional pillow. I hope you enjoyed this technique, and visit the website. We're going to have complete instructions for you so you can make your own beautiful pillow.